We are back on Inside the 12. The quarterback, Taylor McHargue, and myself, Pete Souza. Now, the Big 12 calls for big personalities. And this year on TNT broadcast for the Big 12, you can see this young man right here. We welcome Mike Golic Jr. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning, Mike.
Hey, appreciate you guys having me. Excited to talk some Big 12 ball.
Yeah, yesterday, it's funny. I can't get away from you. I'm in the gym. I'm trying to get swole, and I look up and I see you and your dad, Golic and Golic, right, on FanDuel. And you were talking about Mike Gundy and the developments in Stillwater from earlier this week. Your initial thoughts on the change and how Oklahoma State moves forward.
Yeah, the change, I think, for a lot of people was surprising given Mike's tenure there, 20-plus years at his alma mater, and a lot of people wondering and figuring, hey, does a guy like that get the opportunity to go out on his own terms, no matter what the current circumstances look like? But you look back now at 11 of their last 12 games being losses, last year going 0 in conference play. And the loss to Tulsa really seemed to be a tipping point for so many people around there, a game that they hadn't lost in 50-plus years. And so I think while it's difficult to see someone who means so much to that school and vice versa have to end on these terms like this, I do think this change felt like maybe it was going to be coming eventually. And so if you're Oklahoma State, they want to get started on that search for their future right now. And it'll be interesting to see what direction they go with that, right? Obviously, Mike is an alum there and someone who came with an offensive background there for years, was innovating on that side. And so as you start to hear names kicked around like Zach Robinson, another Oklahoma State alum who's doing a great job as an offensive coordinator for the Falcons now, or G.J. Kinney at Texas State was another name I saw bannered about who's been well known for the offensive output that he's produced there. It's going to be really interesting if maybe they zag and all of a sudden think of a defensive-minded coach that maybe they want to do things differently. But either way, just the end of an era. I don't know Oklahoma State football without Mike Gundy at the helm. And to have it happen a day or so after the anniversary of the I'm a Man, I'm 40 speech almost feels eerie.
Yeah, it
Mike,
does.
we're a few weeks into this partnership between TNT and the Big 12, and I think we've seen the reaction be overwhelmingly positive with the amount of pride and input that has gone into these broadcasts. Let us in a little bit on the behind the scenes of what that looks like on a week-to-week basis and what has made this such a positive experience and stand out week to week with TNT covering the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's a great product that we get to cover, right? I always tell people it's amazing how much better I sound calling a game when the games are good. And so that's been a huge part of this is we have great players, staffs, and teams that we get to cover on this. But I think for me, this is only my second year working with TNT, but the thing you notice very quickly with them is they do everything 100 miles an hour. They do everything to the best of their ability. The same things that have made shows like Inside the NBA great for so many years. That's the care and attention to detail that they apply to everything they do. And so it was no surprise to me. Yes, of course, they were going to bring together a studio show with some of the biggest names in college and pro football to help man the helmet. That, of course, they were going to do a thoughtful behind-the-scenes look at all these schools in the Undiscovered series that we get to see before a lot of these games. And they give us every tool to tell that story the right way. All the different cameras, all the different ways to show and display the hard work that these coaches and players put into things. And so it's been really fun to be a part of a place that values and takes this really seriously, and it gets us fired up on the broadcast because, again, we knew coming into this year, hey, this is a league with a ton of great quarterback play, a ton of really interesting different styles when it comes to these teams, and so to have the opportunity to really get down into the nitty-gritty of this conference has been a ton of fun, and TNT's had a blast doing it, and I know I have too.
Yeah, we have had a blast watching you and JB Long call these games so far. What's unique about the Big 12 to you on the field, right after your first handful of games? What jumps out at you?
Well, I mean, I think it's this continued reminder that for the last few years, it felt like so many people, when they looked nationally at this conference, still had that dated software of, oh, the Big 12 is a pace and space league. Oh, it's going to be 75-50. Every game's going to be the Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield game where Texas Tech is putting up 1 billion points against Oklahoma from back in the day. But I think when you look around this, Deep, league, the quality of defense that you see, like we've gotten to cover Arizona and Arizona State early in the season, and both of those units really jumped out. We're going to be back at Arizona in a couple of weeks for that game against Oklahoma State. And what Danny Gonzalez has done with that defensive unit has been incredible. And then on the other side, yes, there's been incredible quarterback play that we knew was returning to this conference this season. You know, we're getting to look at Jalon Daniels and Brendan Sorsby this week with Cincinnati and Kansas. We just, had great quarterback play in Sam Levitt at Arizona State last week. But then you look at the ground games and some of the offensive groups up front. I'm a former offensive lineman, and I'm turning on the tape to get ready for the Cincinnati Bearcats offense, and I'm falling in love with the big uglies that they got up front here. An incredibly veteran group. Nick Caldwell, their offensive line coach, does a phenomenal job, and I think you've seen that at plenty of these stops along the way. Arizona State, coming off that loss against Mississippi State, found their identity in the second half, getting downhill and hammering people with the run. And so it's an incredibly physical league that's, in addition to great quarterback play, is also going to be built on defense and stout rushing attacks right now that I think is a breath of fresh air for someone who lived in that world as a college football player.
No doubt. Mike, you mentioned Brendan Sorsby in a week coming off of 5 touchdowns in a quarter, a lot made of that. Little different competition this week, traveling to Lawrence in a place where Kansas to start the season has been fantastic at home. What are you expecting out of him, and what does he need to do well this week for them to get a road win?
Yeah, continue to spread the ball around. They've got a ton of weapons in this offense for him to make use of, but to continue to not be afraid to use his legs. The leading rusher on the team right now, and you see when they get into those money downs, 3rd and short, 4th and short, down in the red zone, that's the area where, to me, always, and again, I go back to and default to that experience as an offensive lineman, it helps you so much when the defense has to account for the guy in the backfield that's receiving the snap, also being able to take off and run. Backside linebackers and defensive ends have to hold and stand their feet for an extra second longer while they wait to see what's going to happen. And it gives you so many options we've seen in the RPO game and the design rollout game, all that stuff that can put defenders in conflict on the perimeter. And so we know they've got, a good group in front of him. No sacks allowed this year so far for this offensive line, and that's equal parts. Hey, you've got a really good offensive line, veteran leadership in the middle with your center, but also a quarterback that can help get you out of that. Sacks, as you guys know, are in part a quarterback stat, and he helps them in that area as well. So sack mitigation and the ability to impact defenses and money downs, I think is going to continue to be an area where he shines and is infinitely important to this team.
Yeah, last year, Jalon Daniels, offensively, it never seemed like Kansas could find a rhythm. There was a little bit of an issue, I think, with him and the cohesion with offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes. This year with Jim Zabrowski, it seems like it's been a lot different for Kansas. What are you looking forward to with Jalon Daniels on Saturday?
Yeah, I think just that, his comfort level, right? Because this is a guy, when he's been healthy, by and large, he's been one of the most effective and exciting quarterbacks in the Big 12. And you saw that comfort level show up early for them this season with him. He looks like a guy that, it's sort of like Sorsby on his best day. Yeah, he can sling it all over the yard, but he's also a guy that gets comfortable taking off and really making defenders think long and hard about how they're going to attack this guy. And so I think he's playing with a freedom right now that we haven't seen from him in some time. And we know over the course of 6 years, we've seen so many different versions of that offense, how he fits in it, at times other quarterbacks in there because of those injuries. And so to see him now, what seems like in his final form in this 6th season of college football, it is really encouraging. And to me, one of those guys, and Kansas as a team, Cincinnati as a team, both in that maybe dark horse position right now as we get into conference play. Everyone was super focused on Texas Tech and Utah last weekend, and rightfully so. Looked like 2 of the most talented, deepest teams in the league. They played an incredibly close game until that 4th quarter when the wheels fell off for Utah. And so most people will put Texas Tech in pole position. But I think as you look at that group of, hey, Arizona, Arizona State, Cincinnati, Kansas, these are all teams with great opportunities to insert themselves just right on the outside of that conversation and be running up right along them as we get further and further into the season. And when you've got a quarterback that seems as comfortable again in his surroundings as Jalon does, boy, oh boy, that's a dangerous mix to go along with what DK McDonald's done in that defense so far.
You know, Taylor, I got to imagine you would have liked to have had opportunities to throw the ball behind a guy like this. He knows what he's talking about. He's a sicko. You know, this is good stuff. A quarterback's got to feel good behind a guy like that.
No doubt.
All right, Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Where can people find you? I talked about Golic and Golic. That's on FanDuel. Really a great show. It's so cool. Obviously, your dad and all the work he's done at ESPN, and to see you two together, cosmic chemistry. But where can people find you elsewhere?
Yeah, obviously that's Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 Eastern on FanDuel Sportsnet, which is a ton of fun with Dad, like you mentioned. To get the chance to do that father and son is a pretty unique opportunity. But obviously, you'll catch me Saturdays during the rest of the fall on TNT covering games. You can also follow me at Mike Golic Jr. on all social media. Tons of, now thankfully it's merging into more football content. My offseason, people have to be so confused and think I'm a food blogger because of all the food and snack reviews that end up populating my social media. But I promise I'm a football analyst, and you're seeing that reflected more in the timeline now.
Oh, evidence of that right here. All right, we'll be checking you out on Saturday, Mike. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys.
There he goes, Mike Golic Jr. Pretty good stuff. You would have liked to have thrown behind him.
No doubt. That's awesome. That's good stuff.